So if you guys just want to introduce yourself with name, age, pronouns, gender, and sexual identity, if you're comfortable with that, that would be swell.
My name is Parker. I use she, they pronouns. I'm 22 years old, and I identify as queer.
My name is Elle. I'm 19 years old, and I use they, them pronouns. And I also identify as queer. And I also identify as non-binary.
How comfortable do you feel in your gender/sexual identity, and are they at different levels?
Mine are definitely at different levels. I feel very comfortable in my sexual identity just from being familiar with it for a longer amount of time. Like, I think growing up, I didn't know that gender was something you were allowed to question. And so I didn't contemplate, I didn't allow myself to go there and kind of step out of that. But when I was young, I knew that sexual identity was something that you could explore. So I definitely feel more comfortable with my sexual identity than my gender, because I'm still very much exploring it.
See, I'm the opposite. I like sexuality has always been confusing to me. I haven't really ever understood the constructs of relationships. I don't know. I know what I crave in a partnership, but it's been hard for me to I don't know. I feel also a lot of queer representation is sometimes inauthentic or just performative, or I don't know. So I struggled to see what that looks like for me, because I've also never experienced that fully, in my opinion, or a mutual relationship. But for me, my gender, I very much resonate with womanhood, and that's something that I feel really strongly about. But I also don't feel like being confined to female describes how I feel internally, my internal life and my soul. I feel is much more complicated than just a binary thing that also comes with a lot of pain. When you're born a woman, you're born with a lot of pain. So that I also have I pull away from. And I also think that when people know that I don't identify as only female, it sort of makes them expand their mind of their opinion of me, which is also something that I like.
What was the coming out process like for you? Everyone's favorite question.
After my first relationship, which was with a cis man, I was like, oh, damn, that's not what I am. That's not it. I said, do not want to ever see a penis. And when I was wrestling with that, I had two very close gay male friends. And I was kind of like, how did you know you were gay? What did that feel like? Because I feel it's so much more obvious when a man is gay, because God forbid, the patriarchy is not, masculinity isn't upheld. It's a lot more easy to clock, I think. That was an interesting conversation. And then after that, I came out to my close friends and I was like, I think I'm a lesbian. And they were like, yay. They were like, yeah. But it was also just so awkward. It was my senior year of high school. The people who were gay were either those gays who wore the rubber wristbands and listened to Panic at the Disco that I didn't resonate with. I didn't feel that was my people,
Yeah.
Or they were the stoner lesbians who were just wild. But yeah, I just didn't feel that community. And really, I came out to you before I went to college in the car, and I don't know, I was so emotional. I was like, I don't know why I'm crying. I was like,
girls.
I was like, this isn't that big of a deal, but I'm gay, I think. I said I'm gay. It kind of sent you into a little whoa.
I said, wait, shit, that's allowed?
And those gender roles in the Italian side of our family were just so strong. Being a mother, being a wife, very upheld values in the family, very rewarded behaviors. So I could see how that would be like, oh, what? And I came out to my parents on the phone on National Coming Out Day because I was like, well, fuck it. So like October of my freshman year of college. And my mom was like, that's cool. Like, cause I was talking to a girl and my mom always said, don't come out until you like have an excuse to. Like if you're with someone, just be like, well, if you're like in a partnership, you're like, oh, I'm seeing this person. They happen to be blank. Like,
okay.
you don't have to, at some point, I get that, like coming out is still a big deal, I think. And like, it should be treated like with gravity. But at some point, I think the intention was like, at some point it shouldn't be this mind-blowing thing that's like such a big deal. But
I think it also taught us something about like identifying so closely with a word instead of like a feeling or like an attraction. It taught us a lot about like you can just introduce and say, hey, you know, this is my partner, they happen to be a woman, or they happen to use they them pronouns, or whatever, and like that's just another piece of information about them. Or like, you know, they also like tennis, that's another piece of information about them. Like, it's not something that we have to cling to so hard. And I think that also gave us some space to not make rules for ourselves when it came to sexuality. At least it definitely helped me. But when it comes to my like coming out stuff, I think I interpreted a lot of like space to explore when I was younger. I think that I just thought that everyone liked anyone. Like, I didn't think that gender was a huge factor for everyone. Or maybe I just wasn't picking up on it. But I never really was super obsessed with like the gender of the person that I was attracted to. So I think I never really had like a official coming out. It was just kind of like I would just tell people and be like, yeah, she's really hot, or like, yeah, he's really attractive, whatever. So there was never really like a big shift for me, which is probably why I feel most comfortable with the sexuality aspect of my identity. With gender, it's definitely different. I would say I'm still in a huge season of my coming out as I'm exploring things. I'm very privileged to be in a situation where there's lots of space for me to be just exploring all of it and saying like, oh, this is how I feel right now. And the people around me going, totally cool, awesome, just give me the words, give me the phrases, give me the pronouns, whatever you want, let me know. And if that's no longer what you want, let me know again, you know? So it's definitely been like a season of coming out when it comes to gender and seeing where it leads me.
Do you feel like the support you had when you were coming out, or lack thereof, affects how comfortable you are expressing your gender or sexual identity today?
I think that I intentionally waited until I was somewhere where no one knew me to have it just be adapted as part of my personality and identity. It's like, yeah, I'm like interested in girls, or like it just became this natural thing instead of this thing that was like, I have to tell you, like this person who's known me my entire life, it's like, just so you know, like I am gay. But I think that the reaction of my mom and dad were very different. The reaction of my mom was like, you don't like, I thank you so much for like sharing this with me, and like it's okay, like if you ever like change your mind or like have different, I don't know, experiences down the road, like, you know, I love you, whatever. And then sent me this entire email at 7 a.m. the next day apologizing for her response, because she said my response was like, if you ever change your mind, she's like, I know you thought about this for a year before you said anything. You waited until you found a person that you actually felt something for and then shared it with me. She was like, I just should have left it at like, great. like that's awesome, I'm happy for you. Like,
yeah.
So that was really interesting. And that made us closer, I think. And it also like helped me realize that not only was like a decent response okay, or like that I deserve a decent response, I deserved a response that to that degree, which was in large contrast to my dad's response. Because at the end of our call, my mom said, well, are you going to tell your dad? And I was like, what? And she was like, well, if you don't call him, he's going to be mad. So then I called him, and he happened to be at a bar drunk. And his response was, now we can talk about hot chicks together, and asked me to send him a picture of the girl that I was talking to. So very different responses. And I also said, I don't think we're into the same women. And also you're married. So that was the contrast. I also feel like, also from that experience of my dad, I feel I have somewhat of an aversion to sexualizing people, because I feel like I was sexualized in a way that I didn't want a lot when I was younger. And I never want to be that aggressor. So I think that like, sexualizing women feels like that response from my dad. Like, now we can talk about hot chicks together. So I think that did influence the way that I see myself, or like the way that I operate. But all my friends had great responses, and like met a lot of gay friends, and like,
Yeah.
you can talk about things. And even my friends who were like straight or like unopposed to being open to whatever, like whoever they meet,
Yeah.
just have really good conversations with them, where they just are like unaffected by how I feel and just curious.
In general, being in a community now where I'm stepping into a different type of expression that I've never felt comfortable with before, being in a community that is also, like Parker said, where it's just like another Tuesday that I'm coming out, or that I'm, dressing differently or having different hair or anything like that. It definitely it shifts the way that I think about expression and its importance in my life. I can make it just another part of me. It doesn't have to be the whole part of me. So I think that definitely, as I'm, like I said, in that season, it's helping me navigate that whole thing. Everyone else just being like, chill, that's dope.
Our culture is getting used to adapting.
Yeah.
Are there ways that you wish they would support you instead?
That's a hard question to ask yourself too, because when you're in the communities that we are, it's almost like any sort of acceptance is like, I'll take that morsel of acceptance, that it's so scarce outside of our communities. It's almost like I don't want to ask for anything more, it's almost, it's like I don't want to seem ungrateful, because I know how many people are in other communities that aren't accepted.
Well, it's hard too, because when you're in your circle of people, they get practice every day at pronouns, at even just language, like gendered language. They get practice at that every day. And around people that have a completely different life background, like raised very differently, and just aren't interacting in that way every day, it's so much more difficult to feel like they're supporting you just with language. I feel like that's really what it is. Or even just assuming, or even their attempts at being supportive kind of are unnecessary. Where you're like, we didn't need to do all that. That's making a point that I'm different.
Right.
And I feel like social media has helped with this a lot. Language, teaching people language, and people being exposed to varying degrees of the sexuality spectrum and gender spectrum and all of that. So that's something they can comprehend a lot more easily. My coworkers would be like, how often do you want us to use she? How often do you prefer that? Do you prefer that more? They just would check in about that. Adults would just be avoid it at all costs, just not say pronouns if they don't have to. But
questions that some people wouldn't even think to ask, because they haven't heard those questions. They haven't found people who are questioning those things or breaking it out of any sort of normal language barrier.
They're scared to ask the wrong question.
Right. And then ultimately, that fear could result in that person avoiding being around people who are different in that way. And then also, then they aren't exposed to people who are like that. And they don't feel comfortable having those conversations because fear gets in the way.
Yeah. How do you express your gender or sexual identity at home, with friends, in your community, or to strangers?
I love even just like thinking about the at home portion of that is such a cool way for my brain to think about like what are the natural ways, like the things that I don't even think about subconsciously that give me like gender euphoria or just like remind me that I'm like comfortable and safe in my expression. And I definitely feel like any sort of playfulness at this point feels very gender to me. Like dancing around in socks on my hardwood floor with boxers and like singing my freaking heart out to any gay artist is like that is so gender to me. And it makes me feel like very comfortable in the way that I'm expressing, almost as if like I'm the only audience member watching what's happening, you know?
Um, it's so funny because especially when I'm on my own, I don't feel like I'm actively expressing. Like immediately when you ask that question, I think of how I feel about my body, but like not even in a sexual way, just like how I feel about the view of my body. Yeah, I don't know. I guess that it's because that can be really gendered. But for me, the other really big thing that comes to mind is clothing. Like that's like
Yeah.
that is expression to the max. And even like if I choose to wear makeup or if I choose to wear glitter, like going out with the gals, or like even just going to work and wearing like a big like what bra I choose to wear that day.
Mm-hmm.
If I choose to wear a bra by myself, like that is a big thing too, actually. If I'm like not, I cannot stand the feeling of like just my shirt against my chest, like
Yeah.
not it. So early on, it was like, I need to buy flannels and vests. But this was also like 2017.
Yeah.
So flannel. Um, it's less, clothing is less about gender and it's more about like the feeling and like tone.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, like, I don't know what gender this shirt is. Like, you know?
Thinking about community specifically,
Mhm.
like there's so many parts to that question that can be
Yeah.
dove into for hours. Like there's
Yeah.
so much that is unsaid about like gay culture, queer culture, genderless culture. My initial like answers that come up in my brain are just so silly. Like are just like I go to farmers markets and that's like the gayest thing I'll do all day.
Yeah.
Run.
Like there's so many things that cis people, straight people, they all can like take part in these things, but for some reason when we do it with our brains, with our perspective, it's so gay and it's so gender or lack of. And so I just think it's really interesting how like we can feel safe in an environment that like the vibe switches because we decide that the vibe is there or the vibe isn't there, you know? Like it's gay because we say it's gay.
Yeah.
Because we're gay people taking part in it. I feel like you can do that with things that you wouldn't even say are like inherently gay. Like you could say hunting, but in a gay way. And I'd be like, okay, all right. It's really cool that we can just decide that something is for us. There's so many things that other people decide is not for us.
Yeah.
That it's like we're gonna have to balance out the scales. We claim gays for hunting.
How do you look for gender or sexual identity in other people?
Flannels, vests, clothes, no sleep. Actually, people who don't sleep, that's really gender. I don't know. I feel like there's definitely an energy and a confidence that happens to a person when they've been through a certain amount of things, especially with their identity. There's a certain aura around people.
Almost like a confidence or a like I've had to figure out what this is. like I have, yeah, like you said, like
there's a certain amount of security.
I've gotten through something to have a sense, like a stronger sense than maybe someone who hasn't ever had to think twice about that. I also feel like hair is such a gendered thing, and you can say so much by like facial hair, eyebrows, having no eyebrows, like
yes,
having body hair, having like leg hair, going against the grain of what your assigned genders hair is supposed to look like, just immediately I'm like, okay.
There's a lot of stuff there when it comes to identifying with anything that is inherently assigned to the opposite sex or to a different sex. Wearing makeup, I feel like, is one thing that no matter who you are, the way that you wear makeup will signal a lot of things.
And like accessories, honestly, any like jewelry. I don't know, just like the way someone dresses. It's either like non-gendered, intentionally reverse gendered.
And also, I feel like with social media being so present in the way that people are identifying
trends
and like latching onto trends and stuff, is that we can now see, like, talk about being on gay TikTok, queer TikTok, whatever, trans talk. Like, if you have those types of algorithms, you see specific trends that other people don't, cis people don't, straight people don't.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's become a huge part of how we identify, is if you're following a certain trend that isn't on straight TikTok, that like really the gays have a handle on it, you know? I think that is also something that, like, even if I hear someone talk about a TikTok that they saw, I'm like, oh, they're on queer TikTok. Okay. Or it's a safe space. They're either gay or they're an ally.
Culturally, that is bizarre to think about.
There are those things that because we see them in other people, to identify them, we will do it ourselves in order to communicate with other people. If you think I'm hot, just know I'm a little gay too. Like,
how has your gender/sexual identity expression grown or changed over time?
I feel like early on, it was definitely me trying to figure out how to perform. Like this sense of trying to validate it for myself. So it's like, do I like dressing this way? Because that makes me gay. Do I like doing this thing that gay people like because that makes me gay? Or like, what kind of gay am I? I don't know, trying to find language and boxes or like definitions to put me in a box, just so that I was like, well, I just need to know what I am. Like, I just need to have something to tell people. Now I have enough like confidence to know that that's not all I am. I'm more so okay with doing the things that I enjoy without the worry that it doesn't fit into whatever category I associate with.
I think, weirdly enough, I've been able to see like checkpoints from different people that I've been around in my life, whether that's like friends or partners, or even like whoever my mentors are at the time, or even whether my parents are together or not. Like it, you know, the people around me have shifted so much in what I allow myself to express. But yeah, so I've definitely noticed a big difference. I feel like the people who end up having the most like impact on my sexual identity have been my partners, for sure. Yeah, I feel like that's a little more self-explanatory, but the different partners that I've been with have really expanded what my sexual identity means to me, because as I've had more open and more accepting partners that have left space for me, it's shifted to like this doesn't have to be everything about me. This doesn't have to be like, I don't have to meet someone and be attracted to someone. If I'm like flirting with someone and introducing myself, whatever, I don't have to be like, hi, I'm Elle, I'm gay. You know, it's just something that's like, it's not genital based, it's not gender based, it's really just who you are, you know.
We had to read an article called Keeping Bisexuality Alive, which was about a study done on a bunch of different bisexual women in straight monogamous relationships, and how all the different ways in which they kept their identity alive, because they were technically, you know, if they went out in public, they were in like straight passing relationships basically. And so a lot of them would say things like how they decorated their house, either for themselves or for when other people came over, so they would know. They'd be like, this is a gay home. The music that they listened to, just like all kinds of stuff. So, but they are going over the concept of gender performance. And they said, they explained it as displays of gender relying on traditional notions of what we understand as a culture to be masculine or feminine, so like hair, clothing, makeup, and that these displays are an optional performance focused on what we would like to convey to others about our gender. And specifically, they say, the quote is, Display is focused on the meanings that cues have for the actor rather than on interpretations of those cues by the audience. So a hermit who puts on makeup every morning is still engaging in feminine gender display, even if no one is there to witness it. My question with that is, are there ways that you engage in your gender or sexual expression that are only for you, or do you feel like you're putting on a performance for others?
I feel very deeply to my core that I'm a little guy. And I think I feel that the most when I'm by myself. I feel like when I'm by myself, I can imagine myself to look like and be like anything I want. So like my mental space when I'm just like sitting alone in bed and I'm all curled up, I can in my head look like a little warm frog that's under a lily pad, you know? Like I can be whoever I want in my space. So I think that like I would definitely say that those types of visualizations is a way that I can express myself when I'm alone and feel like it's not a performance, but it's like a visionary thing. You know, personally, I like wearing dresses. They have to be very specifically tailored per gender dysphoria right now, but I love wearing dresses and skirts and stuff. And I feel like I stop myself a lot because of what other people think, but I really do enjoy that sort of like performance. Like I put on dresses when I'm at home alone and I don't wear them out. But like a dress and a good platform boot is so gender to me, and it like feels so good to me. So there's definitely things like that where like wearing a dress doesn't feel gendered at all to me because it's like I'm still me, I'm just putting on like a little piece of cloth, you know. But I definitely feel that way about makeup as well. Like I've been loving like exploring wearing different types of makeup that are less traditional because it feels more like queer to me. It feels more camp to me.
I feel like the stuff that's just for me is a lot of the stuff that happens in my head. And like the vision, it's less like about actually expressing. I don't know if that's, I don't know what that says about me, but like I don't know, I'm a very like simple person when it comes to expression. I'm much more practical when it comes to expression. I mean, there's some degree that where I'm like, okay, like I'm wearing this big ass like t-shirt and Dockers and like, you know, that's not really super femme, but it's to me that doesn't really feel super gendered.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not really thinking about gender. I just like really value comfort and being practical.
Yeah.
And a lot of my expression is like these fantasies of like living in the woods with like a woman and my children, like and my animals. Like the most gender I do for myself is like being domestic as fuck. Like I love like taking care of people and making them food and like cleaning and like making things and like thinking about like when I'll be able to mother and like those, I don't know, those things are gender, but to me I'm like any human does that. Like why, I don't know, like that's just a very deep sense I have. And also something that like I've wrestled with a little bit of like hope the technology is cheaper and easy when that's something I'm considering because don't really plan on having sex with a man to conceive. So that's also, I don't know, it's not really expression, but it's definitely a huge thing for queer people is parenting.
I was listening to the podcast by Glenn and Doyle called We Can Do Hard Things. And it was specifically the episode that had Alok in it. I know you both know who that person is, so I won't like go into the whole explanation. So the quote specifically, they were also talking about the concept of gender performance. So Glennon is speaking to Alok and she said, I can find this thing that is like a wild moving faith inside of me, like my real self, but I can't find any gender. I can't find it inside of me. I can only find gender on me. I have a close transgender friend who can find gender inside of them, and that's what they're expressing. However, this idea of gender is just like a mandatory performance but not born in us, is that how you experience gender? Do you experience gender as a real true thing inside of you that you're expressing on the outside? Do you believe that gender is innate, or do you believe that it sticks to us from the outside or from the external world?
I definitely think that it is something that we learn. I definitely think that something that's capitalized on and taught. And it's hard though, because kids express like things that are defined as feminine, masculine, gendered things, but it's not until it's explained to you that that means you're a woman or that means you're a man. I don't know. And I think that some people, their upbringing makes them really agree to what they've been told that they are.
Yeah.
And some people are raised or discover that they don't care about what people have created these definitions to be. So yeah, I think it's something that sticks to people, and some people feel really comforted by the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Some people really like the rules because it gives them a sense of meaning that they don't have to question.
Mm-hmm.
But some people feel really suffocated by the rules.
Personally, gender feels sticky as hell to me, so I do believe it sticks to us. It has stuck with me, and it continues to try and stick to every inch of my body.
So that podcast episode is 2 parts because it's just long. And so in the second part, Alok says this really beautiful quote that I would like your guys' opinions on. They said, "I'm not a woman, I'm a Muppet," and I would like to know how that resonates with you specifically.
And you know what? I would love to take this question. Thank you, Parker. I am not a woman, and I'm not a man. I'm just a little guy. And I will always be a little guy. I've always been a little guy. At some points, it's hard when I notice that other people might not naturally see me as a little guy,
Mm-hmm.
but it is really big to me that that's how I see myself. And it is really big to me when other people accept that as well.
When I listened to that podcast and I screamed when I heard that.
Yeah.
Because it says so much. Like, just saying I resonate with being a Muppet. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Well, we were also called Muppets as children by our parents, which is really funny.
Yeah.
Like,
and
when we would act goofy, we were called Muppets.
And that just, like, to me, that has so much more of a sense of joy in it. Not only is it reclaiming or like redefining, but it's like, I'm silly. Like, I'm just like, don't tell me what I am, because I'm just going to be this caricature.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And you might be confused. You might not find it funny, but it doesn't matter. I don't know. I feel like there are parts of womanhood and like the community. I think I'm really drawn to the community of what womanhood is. The ancient history of like what women have overcome, and like the grit and like, I don't know, the tribe that it creates. But there's also so much more like Muppet. Like, I love that.
I'm a little craft project.
But yeah, and also there's some sort of like childhood like core to that too, of like, I don't know, this inner innocence just wants to like love life and like be goofy. Just
Right.
goofy.
Well,
silly
I think
goofy.
the Muppet sentiment is very cute.
Really nice.
I mean, it is a reminder that we are here in these physical bodies, and so it's like, what do you want to do with your physical body? To me, I just want to decorate it. I want to put cute shit on it, give it tattoos, and like put cute little rings and fun little necklaces on it, and wear cozy clothes that makes the body feel good, you know? So I feel like the Muppet aspect just reminds you that you're just decorating your person, you know?
Yay! Thank you. That's all I've got for you today. Good work. Good work, pals, friends, lads. Oh, shit. Oh my god. Why'd you look so alarmed? Holy shit.
That was
quiet on set. Are we good? Break out the sippy top. See, it's handy.
I'm crying.
My God.
How was you changed?
Hold on.
Damn. Okay. Wait a minute.
Yeah, I'm back to life, I think.
Jesus.
What was the question?
So what was the question?
Okay,
Going.
focus. No.